everybody, it's Andrea Mercy, aka Anlom, and welcome to my studio. Today is going to be a double project, so I am going to teach you how to glaze from scratch. If you watched my Thankful for Art video, thank you, which is right there, you would have seen me working with a piece that had a significant number of layers of glaze on it. And during that video, I said that I would come back and do a second video that would be just how to glaze. The second part of the project is I need to make a sign for my studio door that I can flip that says videoing or, welcome, because my husband needs access to the back room of the studio and he has a little bit of anxiety because he doesn't know when he can come and go. So I told him that I would do a sign and I would just flip it when I was recording live so that he wouldn't have to worry about it. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to do a red one and a green one on some old re-gessoed canvases. I'm going to go gather some materials and then we'll come back and start. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give them another coat of gesso. I don't think I've done that on a video yet, and it's good for you to know. This gesso here, I don't really like because it's really thick. Okay, so I have this Glaze gesso, which is very liquidy, and it's lovely. I love it. I also have a Tri Art one, but it's huge. It's like a gallon. And then I have this one that I bought. Well, I must have bought it at Michael's. It's Artist Loft, but it's very thick, and it tends to be difficult to apply just because it gets thick. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to sacrifice this and I'm going to add some water to it and shake it up and thin it down so that I can actually use it. When I'm done with this, that big gallon pail that I have, I'll keep refilling this one with it. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to add, this is about, I'd say 2/3 full. I'm probably going to add a 1/2 inch of water and stir it up really good with a stir stick and give it a few shakes, and then we'll come back. So right now, I don't know if you can see that. Let me get a palette knife. There you go. So it's like molasses almost, and that is just no help whatsoever. We need something a little bit more like, well, not water. And we'll mix it up and see what happens. Okay, so it's up to about 3/4 full now, so I didn't add in quite a 1/2 inch, and I stirred it up really well, and now you can see it's a little bit thinner than honey. I would say maybe a thin pancake batter. It still has a little bit of body to it, but it's not as thick as before. Like, it was really difficult to spread that with a brush. Here we are. We're just going to gesso this. I'm going to gesso this way this time. You can already see the difference. This one's significantly whiter than this one. Okay, so these two pieces are dry now, and I went and got the 2 glazes that I used in the Thank You Remembrance Day piece, and I just put out a little glaze here to remind myself that when I originally did that piece, I started with a white gessoed piece of masonite and I put on layers and layers and layers of yellow glaze to create that nice deep yellow before I started adding red to intensify it and darken it at the top. And that took layers. Like, that was the reason why it took 200 layers, is because it took so long to actually get the color down. So what I'm going to do is, instead of starting with white, I'm actually going to put a very light color of red for this one. I'm not going to use the yellow. I think I'm going to go red and green. So I will use this opportunity to show you how to make glaze from scratch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a layer of green down first on this and a layer of red down on this first, so that as we build the glaze up, we're not having to build that base color. The color will already be there, and then we're going to be building up the layers and layers of glaze. So I have cadmium red light, which is a nice light red. So we'll put that down. And then we will darken and give it intensity and depth with glaze. And then I'll do green on the other one, and we'll make some green glaze together to show you how to make the glaze. So we're going to add some bright red to that. I'm going to add polymer gloss. This is the same as the Liquitex gloss medium and varnish. I'm just using this up so that I can have less bottles hanging around on my cart. So there we go. We're going to add some of that and water. So for those of you who are going to try making glaze at home, I can suggest that you use a third and a third and a third. So a third paint, a third medium. You can use matte medium if you want, it just won't be as glossy. For me, the whole point of having a glaze is to make it glossy, so I always use a gloss medium, and a third water. And then you can play with that and see if you like the consistency. You want something really sloppy. So it goes on really thin and very transparent. There we go. Yeah. Woo! I'm making a mess. So there's still, you can see that there's paint that hasn't been blended yet. You want to make sure that it's really well blended. If this didn't have a hole in the lid, I would probably shake it. I don't want this to move because both my hands will be busy. There we go. Okay. So we're going to have the dryer going and the glaze going, and I will be doing this in fast forward. So my hair dryer blew up and it shut down my camera and it shut down everything. That's happened to me before, but only if I'm using two things at once. I thought I was safe. At any rate, I just wanted to show you. See the difference in the color here? That's because I use the hair dryer. If I put down a coat of glaze and I let it dry naturally, it would dry. But what happens is, because I use the hair dryer, some parts dry faster than the others. So when I put down the next coat of glaze, some sticks, some move. So I get that varied effect. I just wanted you to know that. So if you want really crystal clear, homogeneous color where it's just one color, you'll have to put it down, dry it thoroughly, either naturally or with a heat gun or whatever, but you can't be doing both at the same time. You'd have to let it dry and then gloss and then let it dry. And because I do that, I also get, you can see there's a little bit of ridging from the brush strokes that get caught in the semi-dry glaze from the layer before. So normally what I do is I get it to the color I want, and then I do a quick sanding, and then I do one more coat and I let it sit. I don't think I'm going to be able to show you the entire process on camera because I can't risk filming and my hair dryer going because what happens is then I lose my video. So I'm going to do this kind of all off camera, the exact same thing. Putting it on, drying it, putting it on, drying it, putting it on, drying it. And then I'll come back and I'll show you. So I'm back with my heat gun because I realized after I shut down the last part of the video that my stuff has never blown up when I use my heat gun. So it has to be the hair dryer. I don't know if it sucks too much power or what. So I've decided I'm going to come and do one layer with you in real time. Well, except for the heat gun. So basically, if you're starting out glazing, this is the way you want to do it, as opposed to me doing both at the same time. You get ridges, you get color movement. If you're doing it for the first time, you'll want to do it like this. So basically what you want to do is you want to take your glaze, you want to put down one nice smooth coat of glaze. One smooth coat just like this. And you want to let it dry. You either want to let it air dry or you want to take your heat gun to it and dry it completely before you put on the next layer of glaze. And this will prevent a lot of the ridging from the brush strokes, the color movement. It's slower. However, if you're like me and you're doing 17,000 things during the day, so, you know, I have my husband's business, there's clients, there's laundry, there's dog walking, there's everything else, you can put down a layer of glaze, cover up your glaze container, walk away, come back, it's dry, slop another one on, and go away, walk back and forth. So glazing can actually be great if you're too busy to art. You're never too busy to glaze because you can just slap down a coat and walk away and just keep coming back and slapping down a coat. It only takes 5 seconds. And then if you want, you can use the heat gun to completely dry, or if you're impatient like me, you can always try doing both at the same time. You're going to get color variations and you're going to get glaze variations, but if you can live with that, then it's perfectly fine. Like what happens is once I get my depth of color, which is coming up actually really soon, I will sand the ridges down and I will do one final coat and let it naturally dry so that I get a nice top coat, a nice glossy sheen, and then I will do whatever piece of art that I want to do on top of it. So you have many different options with this. You can do it fast and not care about variation. You can do it slow and keep it nice and consistent, and you can even do it over many days by just putting a glaze down and walking away and coming back the next day and doing whatever you want. This is actually a really forgiving way of doing some backgrounds. So I'm just going to dry this. When I'm done with my depth of color, I'll come back for a final chit chat before we get to the next part. Okay, so I've just discovered something that's going to be quite useful. If you look right up here, you see that kind of beading. So normally, as you know, I slop on, heat, slop on, heat, slop on. Yesterday I was busy, so I took my own advice and I was kind of just putting down a layer and I was walking away. And because I made a third, and a third, so a third paint with a third polymer and a third water, the glaze was very watery and it was beading up before it dried. See, normally I dry it right away. So if you're going to be using the glaze and laying it down and walking away to let it dry naturally because you're doing 17 other things at the same time, I would suggest using more polymer and less water so that it stays in a coat without beating up like that. Not that it's a bad thing for this. I mean, it's for a sign. See, you can see how it beaded up there. It's for a sign for my studio. It's not a big deal. But if you're doing something as a gift or for something to sell, I want to make sure that you have the information that you need to make good decisions with the mediums that you're using. All right, so as you can see, this is coming along. It's still not quite red enough for me, so I'm going to do some more layers. I have time today, so I'm going to be using my heat gun and putting on lots and lots of layers. Okay, so I'm down to the very last coat of glaze. I just wanted to show you this. See how nice and shiny it is? I have learned a valuable lesson. I'm never going to do glaze with the hairdryer again for a couple of reasons. One is because my hairdryer keeps blowing up, but two, I'm not getting the same results. I'm getting better results with my heat gun, and I think it's because it's hotter and it dries it faster. So I can actually dry the entire thing and then put down another coat of glaze. See how there's no ridges now? Isn't that awesome? I would never have expected the difference just between a hairdryer and the heat gun. So where all of this discoloration is from the lower levels when I was using the hairdryer and not waiting. So when I do the green one in fast forward next, I'm going to just use the heat gun and do it the way I have been doing it for the last, I don't know, 20 or so layers. And I think that the results are going to be significantly better. So I'm down to the very last bit of my glaze. Just one last layer. So what we're going to do is I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to do the green in fast forward, and then there'll be a second video with the transfer technique so that I can have a video on how to glaze and then a video, an additional video on how to do the transfer technique. So we'll come back after the green one and have some final words. This is streaking because it's not completely dry. I'm having a problem seeing because of the glare, so I can see fairly well down here when it's dry, but I am having a problem up here. So because it's dry down here, I think it's dry up there, and I'm pulling. So when I pull the new glaze through the not finished glaze, it pulls the color. I'm not patient enough. I need to slow down. So that's it for part one. I've got two panels, one red, one green, ready to go. So if you go right here, you'll be able to see part two, which is the transfer technique onto this to finalize the sign. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe right here so that you can get more videos just like this showing you different techniques in acrylic painting and mixed media. I invite you to go down into the dibbly-doo and see my links for my Facebook page and my Etsy store and my website. I'll see you soon. Bye.